Okay, welcome George and any other members of the public that may be watching this on our YouTube stream. I'm Daryl Vanderveen, Junior Planner here at the Town of Fort Erie. This is the information open house for the proposed town-initiated zoning bylaw amendment. Just give me one sec here, get some feedback. Daryl Vanderveen. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this is the information open house meeting for the proposed town-initiated amendment to the zoning bylaw for 2022. The town is the applicant in this case, and let's get started. So to start, we're looking at some updates to the general provisions of the town zoning bylaw. The first is to add some provisions for community gardens. So this would be adding that as a permitted use and also adding some regulations on where in the town we would like to see community gardens. Second, we are looking at some regulations for hardscaping on lots. So these would be provisions to limit hardscaping material on lots concerning rear yard and drainage. This is similar to a provision we already have in the zoning bylaw in the front yard where 30% of the front yard must remain landscaped. So we'll be considering if we want to apply something similar in the rear yard to prevent the drainage impacts. Next, we're looking to add some provisions to the landscaping and planting strip regulations of the zoning bylaw, namely expanding what can be considered as landscaped open space. So this would be things like green roofs, permeable pavers, green infrastructure. And similar to the hardscaping on lots, again, we might be looking at adding a minimum percentage for rear yards requiring landscaped open space. Next, we'd be looking to modify our temporary uses regulations to permit a temporary trailer for human habitation in some of the rural and agricultural zones. So people can stay in a trailer while they're constructing the dwelling for a period of up to 12 months. Next, we're looking to update our regulations for average setbacks. So the town zoning bylaw has a front yard setback requirement for all zones, but we also have an average setback regulation. So if houses on either side of you are a little bit closer than the minimum front yard setback, the zoning bylaw allows you to take an average. So right now, this policy doesn't really speak to corner lots, so we'll be looking at tweaking it a bit to actually accommodate average setbacks for corner lots as well. Next, we'd be looking to modify our outdoor patios regulations for restaurants and taverns. Namely, we'd be looking at relaxing setback requirements for outdoor patios in the downtown zones and potentially the other commercial zones as well. Right now, the zoning bylaw has set setback requirements in residential zones that apply across the town and don't really factor in downtown commercial areas. And we think there might be better ways to approach this. So we'll be looking at tweaking those regulations. And finally, we'll be looking at modifying our regulations for model homes. Right now, the town zoning bylaw has a set number of model homes. I believe it's 5. We would also be looking to add in a limitation based on the percentage of the total number of lots in a planned subdivision, something like 10%. So if a smaller subdivision comes in, half of it can't be built as model homes. It would also be subject to a percentage limitation. Next, another change we're looking to make to the zoning bylaw would be to remove the minimum floor area requirements for residential dwellings. This is in the interest of increasing housing affordability and also addressing some zones, namely the rural and agricultural zones, where they have a lot coverage requirement and also a minimum floor area. And if you have a smaller sized lot, those two provisions can actually conflict with each other. And it's, in some cases, you can't meet the maximum lot coverage and the minimum floor area. So we're actually looking to remove the minimum floor area requirements in the zoning entirely. and any dwellings would just be subject to building code requirements for minimum floor areas. And we were also looking to do this for duplex dwellings in the R3 zone. Next, we're looking to add and modify our regulations to reflect value-added uses in agricultural and rural zones. So late last year, the town had a housekeeping amendment to the official plan, which added in some provisions that spoke to value-added uses. So these would be things that are kind of secondary or accessory to agricultural uses. So, for example, if you owned a farm, you could hold weddings on site, agritourism type uses, like corn mazes, educational facilities, you could hold special events. So we'd be looking to open up our zoning provisions to permit some of these agritourism and value-added uses, as we call them. There are some in the zoning bylaw already, but we would be looking to enhance these provisions to meet our new official plan policies. So next, we're also looking to add regulations for infill dwellings to the rural RU zone. So currently, the RU zone requires a minimum lot area of 6 hectares for creation of new lots. We do have policies in the official plan that do permit lot severance in the rural area in certain cases, provided it meets what we consider to be an infill lot. So these provisions would be looking to sort of add some ability in the RU zone to create a lot without having to go through a zoning bylaw amendment every time a severance is proposed in the rural zone. So based on regional policy, sort of the minimum lot area is 1 hectare. So we would be adding that as a provision. The region does allow new lot creation down to 0.4 hectares or 1 acre if a hydrogeological study is submitted that demonstrates that the new lot would be adequate to provide a septic system. It doesn't have any environmental impacts. So we might add a provision as well to allow lots of 0.4 hectares to be created, again, provided a hydrogeological study is submitted and reviewed and accepted by Niagara Region. Another proposed change is modifying the minimum lot area for regulations for block townhouse dwellings. This would be in the RM1 zone. So right now, the minimum lot area is just a flat 4,000 square meters or 0.4 hectares, 1 acre for block townhouses. We would be looking to modify that minimum lot area and base it on units per hectare density. So for example, the minimum lot area would be 200 square meters per dwelling unit. That would be for 50 units a hectare. Another change we're looking to implement potentially is adding regulations for accessory dwelling units in the institutional zone. So there is, the institutional zone does permit accessory residential dwelling units currently, but it doesn't really have any site-specific provisions on how those can be accommodated on the same site as an institutional use. So we would be looking to add new provisions that actually stipulate setbacks, how big a residential dwelling unit can be, where it can be located in terms of yards, that sort of thing. So other miscellaneous changes we're proposing. We're also looking to add fitness center as a permitted use in a lot of our commercial zones. We have a definition for fitness center currently. However, it's actually not included as a permitted use in a lot of the commercial zones where that type of use would be appropriate. So we'd be looking to add that use to these zones here. And we'll also be conducting housekeeping updates on the zoning bylaw, such as correcting section numbering, cross references, typos, and grammatical errors. So in terms of timeline for the 2022 housekeeping amendment, notice of the open house meeting was placed in the local newspaper on December 16, 2021. The information open house meeting is taking place today, January 6, 2022. Currently, we're aiming to hold a public meeting before council and submit an information report to council. and that would be the council and committee meeting on February 14th, 2022. Over the course of February and March, we'll be taking in any comments we receive from the public and comments from council at the public meeting, and building that into our recommendation report. We're looking to submit the recommendation report to council for March. So that would be the March 21st, 2022 council and committee meeting. These dates are tentative, you know, the ongoing COVID situation, but we would like to bring that to council for a decision in March. So if it were to proceed for March 21st, the bylaw would actually be subject for approval, assuming council approves it, on March 28th, 2022. The town would be issuing notice of decision of the zoning bylaw amendment in early April 2022. And there's a 20-day appeal period required by the Planning Act. So 20 days after notice of decision, that would be the appeal period, and that would be up late April 2022. So assuming everything goes forward and we are able to meet all of our timeline milestones as planned, and it's approved by council, this housekeeping amendment should be in force and effect by May of this year. So that concludes the presentation. This meeting will be held until 6 o'clock today. So I believe we have one attendee. I'll see if anybody else joined, see if the attendee has any questions. If not, I'll monitor this this meeting, let the presentation cycle through. And if anybody's watching this on YouTube, if you go to the link shown on the page here, you could join the Zoom meeting, and then I'll bring you in as a panelist, and we can discuss or see if you have any questions or any comments. Oh, and I see our attendee unfortunately has left. So George, if you're still listening to this on YouTube, or you're watching it later, thanks for the comments. We will be including that to the information report to council. If you want to have a separate meeting with us to discuss it, just let me know. I can set something up with myself, you, and our manager, Aaron Butler, manager of development approvals. So again, anybody watching this on YouTube, I'm going to cycle through the presentation. The last slide contains a link to this Zoom meeting. If you're attending late, feel free to visit that site and pop in on the meeting. I'll be monitoring the waiting room, and I'll bring any new attendees on for discussion or questions. Thank you.